Yes, so I'm Matthew Weaver, and I'm working with a lovely team of colleagues, many of who are here, some are not. But I want to tell you a little bit about impact that we have seen in this ResBen project, but more the kind of the hidden value that's emerging that often gets missed in kind of traditional M&E processes. So looking at a value creation approach. So to start, just a narrative story from a professor in Ethiopia who's deeply, deeply rooted in natural sciences. I'm the leader of the Ethiopian node and also the vice chair of the whole project. My social science horizon has increased, Now I understand that working with people is very important and will help apply my knowledge of landscape restoration. That's an important gain for me and something I will continue working on and make part of my teaching in ecology and botany. Our students are now also being trained in that dimension. They are developing this understanding that working with people, particularly in rural areas, will increase your understanding of the natural science dimension. In my role in future landscape restoration processes, I will try to ensure that there is awareness of power sharing and vigorous participation of people in developing landscape solutions. I will include this in the course outline of all courses I may be teaching in the future. If I had not participated in the ResBen project, I wouldn't have obtained this kind of awareness. Not just from reading, you see. Our actual involvement in the discussions, in the workshops, has raised my awareness. Now, this story it's actually a form of impact that his involvement in the ResBen project has catalyzed. And often we don't really acknowledge these as impact. It's a sign that there is a shift towards sustainability, that the transdisciplinary project is making a difference, even at an individual level. So I'll come back to this a bit later. So we are in the world of complex problems, and increasingly transdisciplinary approaches are being adopted and taken up to try and shift these problems. And it's the social, dynamic, context-specific learning that actually catalyzes agency and change towards sustainability, towards making a difference. And that's really what we were trying to highlight and understand and see what kind of learning is happening and how is that learning contributing to individuals' ability to make the difference they care to make. So linking back to what Dirk said right at the beginning about paying attention in these spaces and that enabling you to hopefully make a difference in what you're trying to do. So with this rise of transdisciplinary research and transdisciplinary research teams, evaluation processes have had to adapt to evaluate them. And most of these focus on these three pillars of process evaluation, which is the how, inclusivity, equity, methodological processes, adaptation, then societal effects, which talks to the short-term splash effect and the longer-term ripple outcomes, and then impact, which is the ecological, the social, and the social ecological transformations as a result of these TD interventions. And often the focus is more on, in the research space, what the TD project is, what effect it's having in the environment and the problem that it's facing, which is important. We need to understand that. But there's less emphasis on the impact of the individuals, the team members that are involved in that transdisciplinary project, the multi-stakeholder team and the stakeholders themselves participating in the project. So how is what they're learning benefiting them in making the difference they care to make? So we draw on this concept of value, and social learning creates value for participants to the extent that they view engaging in uncertainty, so engaging at the edge of what you know, and paying attention to feedback, to what's coming back from you in the room, and how that is contributing to their ability to make the difference they care to make. So that's this concept of value, and we're using that to understand impact as a result of social learning. So in the ResBen project, how is social learning contributing to people's ability to make the difference they care to make. So we're trying to explore this value across these different nodes, as well as in the hub team that's supporting the project, as well as to a certain extent in the stakeholders, which is a lot harder to measure, but that is an intention. Where is learning taking place? It's in social learning spaces. So it's in these collective engagements that actually make up a project like the ResBen. And these are mostly face-to-face events, but it's actually those online events in the ResBen context that were prolific, because that's where we were able to work. So it's the processes of people paying attention in these spaces, responding to feedback, and learning that catalyze value. So this is where we were looking for evidence of value. How were we measuring value? So this is where we drew on this value creation framework. And the value creation framework suggests 8 different cycles of value. So we were interested in the instances of value, but more specifically how that different forms of value connected to one another to create flows of value that would then contribute to actual meaningful change or difference that people were trying to make in their personal development as a collective and a node team, for instance, or to the problem that they're trying to address. So one gets orienting value, which is that knowledge and experience you bring into the social learning space, as well as the broader learning landscape in which your learning space is embedded. Immediate value: what is your experience of a social learning space? How did you find it? Was it exciting or motivating or intimidating? What did you get out of it? The potential value. What did you learn? What networks did you build? What new methods, ideas did you develop? Applied value: what did you do with what you learned? Realized value: what was the result of what you did? Transformative value: what change happened within you, maybe your identity, or within the community or society or problem space that you engaged in. Strategic value talks to value related to engaging with stakeholders outside of the learning space, but have a strategic influence into the learning space, like a funder or a leader, a project, or institutional manager that is interested in what's happening and can influence it, but isn't a member of it. Then, lastly, enabling value. What kind of value makes it all happen? What makes it possible to create all these different cycles of value? So, how did we present this evidence? We collected data across all these learning spaces, and we developed these narratives. So, these narrative value creation stories or vignettes. And we try to connect these different forms of value into logical stories. And we presented this using the framework to try and see the connection between the different value cycles, to see these trajectories of developing value as evidence of to what extent are we at an individual level and a collective level able to show that we are shifting, gradually, incrementally shifting the complex system towards change. So in this professor's example, he came into the project with a very deep disciplinary approach to landscape restoration. That's in orienting value. Then he actually practiced in the ResBen project. He was exposed to how the ResBen project works, what Margaret was talking about around the way in which adaptive planning processes are run. Tali spoke about the adaptive systemic approach and all the engagements involved in that. So through his application of the ResBen project, he gained value. He gained appreciation of social science. His social science horizon expanded, so that was like an impact for him. This then created potential value for him. He developed an improved ability to integrate his landscape restoration knowledge in practice, so his ability to integrate was improved. The emphasis of engaged research and power sharing became more important. He started making explicit efforts to integrate that into his teaching, his course design, and future project designs that he was involved in or participating in. And cumulatively, this resulted in a slight shift in his identity of now he's more aware, he feels like he's a little bit more conscious and supportive of integrating social and ecological related research. What made it all happen? He spoke about these discussions and workshops in the ResBen project. Okay. So that's one little snapshot of one individual in the project. Another quick example is a hub team member coming into the project with quite low confidence and sense of capabilities around the adaptive planning process specifically. Then immediate value was related to this feeling of anxiety, feeling uncomfortable about this position of working with the APP methodology. Potential value, learning about the methodology. Applied value, actually leading planning and facilitating adaptive planning processes. Then realizing that actually my voice is being heard in these processes. People are listening to me, they're looking to me for advice on how to run and plan a process. So this experience of their contributions being valued, and that results in an identity growth or shift, the sense that, yeah, I can do this. I've got the capabilities. And that flows back to a potential value, which is this growth of confidence. And then looking forward to future adaptive planning process or facilitating other engagements. What helps, what enabled that is having a team, a capacitated team, having supportive leadership, being supporting, you're able to fail, practice, learn. Failure is not the end of the world. So having that leadership is really beneficial. So these are just two snapshots of individuals, these trajectories of value creation. And the idea is to collect accumulation of these different value flows from the ResBen project across the nodes, from the hub, the nodes, and to a certain extent what evidence we have from the stakeholders, to get a more composite picture of what the impact of the ResBen project is having. How, to what extent is the ResBen project creating value and showing evidence towards shifting towards sustainability? And as Sally said, in 3 years, it's very hard to see that shift and what change you're having in the system. But these just gives you some form of evidence that we are kind of on the right track, or not. So why is this useful? I think a value creation approach can help inform a monitoring and evaluation process. I wouldn't say it is the only way, definitely not. I think it's a good complementary way of monitoring and evaluating a TD process, or any process. It doesn't have to be TD. If you're paying attention to where value is created or to the importance of social learning, then you can facilitate learning process or design learning process to promote social learning. And paying attention to value across all stakeholders, project participants and stakeholders, can curb against extractive research, promotes equity. It gives you a better understanding of the deeper impact of a project for the research team itself, for funders, for stakeholders. And this demonstration of a trajectory of change, really important when you are working in these short projects cycles. Lastly, it can inform project adaptation. So feedback from value creation research can help you adapt your project as you're going along. If there's spaces that aren't really catalyzing great value, you can adjust them to be more productive. And if they are already creating good value, then you can keep them going or promote them. That's it. Thank you.